Committee Chair Josh Schulman.
Dave Albritton.
Vince Cox, Pinellas County.
Jim Oliver, City of Seminole.
Deborah Fix Sanders, St. Petersburg City Council.
Fantastic. And we'll move on to our public comment. There, okay, there is no public comment. Thank you, and action items. First one is to approve the July 20th, 2022 minutes.
I'll move to approve the July 2022 minutes.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you for that. And moving on expeditiously to the service changes. And Cassandra Borchers.
Good morning. I brought this to you last meeting as an information item, and since then, we've held a public hearing to discuss these changes with the public. As you recall, we are very excited about the Sunrunner and the increased service that it'll provide between downtown St. Petersburg and the beaches. But we've also talked about making some changes to other parts of our system in order to accommodate this increased service. So there are a couple of changes that we have recommended throughout the development of the Sunrunner project, including changes to the local service, the Central Avenue Trolley. So we would reduce the service on the Central Avenue Trolley to 30 minutes. Again, there's increased service on the Sunrunner at every 15 minutes, and so the overall frequency for the service area is improved. But just for the Central Avenue Trolley itself, we would reduce the service to 30 minutes, 7 days a week. And also at the request of the City of St. Pete Beach, we would stop the service on the west end at 75th and Gulf at approximately 6:30 p.m. We did take a look at the number of riders that are using that service after that time, and think that they can be accommodated also by the Sunrunner and the increased service in the Sunrunner. Another service adjustment that we have planned as part of the Sunrunner opening is truncating the 18 at Grand Central. So this route provides service from downtown Clearwater to downtown St. Pete through Tyrone and the Grand Central District. And we would recommend ending this service at Grand Central, as the Sunrunner would provide the connection into downtown. So this is a small change overall, and there would be no change in the frequency for the rest of the route. So the increased service over the corridor itself would include the Sunrunner, the remaining service on the Central Avenue Trolley, and the remaining service on the 18. So this is just increase the amount of increased service that we have, about 20%. We did take public comments and had a public hearing held on the 11th of last week. It was Thursday last week. And we did receive some comments. You have those in front of you. Normally when we make changes to the service area, we do get some negative comments. What surprises me every so often is when somebody writes in and writes positive comments. And so you'll see in those comments, you did get a number of positive comments about the Sunrunner, and surprisingly enough, some agreement about the changes that we would make. That's not to say that we didn't get negative comments as well. A few people were concerned about the service on changes on the CAT related to the frequency, and again, I think these can be alleviated through the use of the Sunrunner. And then also some changes to the 18. There are additional services that people can take from downtown to Grand Central and beyond. And so we have left few, if any, riders out of service. I think there are plenty of opportunities for people to shift to the Sunrunner and make great use of that better service.
Are there any?
This is an action item for today, and it will be going to the board.
Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Fix-Sanders?
Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation and looking at the flyers, but I had not had the opportunity to read the public comments until now. So the couple that actually stood out to me is the disabled veteran and their access from St. Pete to, was it Central?
To the VA.
To Bay
Downtown
Pines.
TA. So how would that impact him? I know that we said we would provide other options.
Yes.
Are those options as convenient, especially when we're looking at ADA issues? For example, the Sunrunner, is it easier to board, on, board off? How, the accessibility, although, we spoke about frequency and cutting routes, but the accessibility, is that going to be just as convenient for our ADA riders?
So the Sunrunner is actually much easier
It's
to
easier,
board,
okay.
because there's a lot less, there's a lot less delay, and it's called level boarding. And so there's not as much need to make changes to the bus and the bus height in order to accommodate ADA passengers. So it will be much easier to board the Sunrunner for ADA passengers. In this particular case, this gentleman may have to transfer services to get to Bay Pines at Grand Central, but the frequency of the Sunrunner will be substantial, that you have a much better opportunity for a good ride.
So we know that this may be an inconvenience for him. Have we reached out to him intentionally to provide him assistance with how he can
We
make
certainly
accommodations?
can, and we do have, the Grand Central is a direct connect stop as well, and so there are other ways for people to get to Grand Central and then hop on the transferring bus that they'd like to, but we can absolutely reach out to him directly.
But yeah, we'll reach out to all these people that we have the email addresses for that provide a comment.
Okay,
Try to help
maybe
them.
I missed it somewhere too, but where is the educational piece for this? The marketing, to tell everybody how this works and why we took, is there a timeline for that, a plan? How are we gonna educate riders
Yes.
as to the different options that they have?
So every service change, we do an internal public engagement plan, and I can certainly put that as part of the presentation to the board. Our external affairs officer, Bob Lasher, and his team go out and ride the buses, put signs out. There's a very extensive program that we do when we change services. So we'll have people out there to help people.
Okay, so when you say
navigate
ride the
those.
bus, they ride multiple times of the day to help educate people of their.
Right, so we'll look at particular times of the day that we might ride and make sure that people are aware. We always put signs on the buses. We put signs out at the stops, any stops that are being changed. So every stop from Grand Central to downtown will get a little sign that says, as of this date. So we usually do that about 2 weeks. So that, all that effort happens 2 weeks before the service change. And the reason that we wait so long to get there is because we have done it so far in advance, then people forget. So we really try to concentrate it 2 weeks ahead of the service change. And so you'll see a lot of those things out October 1st.
Thank you. I think that would be good to include in the board presentation.
Bob's I think Bob's always watching, so Bob,
Always
if you hear
watching.
that, we'll put that part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Oliver?
Yeah, maybe it's just me, but I have a difficult time, and I echo your comments, reading comments during the presentation. So I know you want to get the very last minute to get the comments in, but even if you send it just a couple days before, a copy of anything that's not on the agenda, and a copy of the agenda itself, because I typically go through and write notes on it. If we could do that in advance, I think it'd be helpful. Just even if it's just a day, so that we're not getting something and trying to read it while during your presentation. Thank you.
Especially if it's an action item.
Yeah.
We do,
Yeah.
we are,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we can do that, and we understand that we will continue to take comments up until the board.
Oh, understood.
So there could be some changes.
Understood.
And I will also say, if we need to take a moment here in this, to make sure that we have time to read the comments, and that's
Yes.
perfectly fine. We don't, the agenda can pause for a moment.
That's fine.
Commissioner Cox, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. And it's on the same person, Mr. Sullivan, that you were speaking about, Deb, the disabled vet that lives in Grand Central. That's what Pelly you were talking about, was it not?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the Sunrunner would seem to be convenient because it runs on First North, and he lives on 23rd Street. But where does that actually, doesn't it disembark right there by 30th Street? 32nd Street, yeah.
30, yes, so Grand.
So they gotta walk?
31st,
Yeah, they would have to walk
right.
over to Grand Central to pick up the 18, correct?
They
No.
could, he could go right to the Sumner Station right there It's a very short
22nd.
ride on, it's like one station ride from 22nd to
Right.
Grand Central.
In this particular
But
case,
it doesn't go right to Grand Central, does it?
but in this particular case, he still has the 18 at 43rd. right?
Oh, he
It's
does?
it's only from Grand Central to downtown that we're truncating the route.
Right.
So he still has the 18 to use. He can go directly to Bay Pines. His trip doesn't change. This particular man, we just need to reach out to him and tell him
Okay.
his trip doesn't
So
change.
reach out to me too, because,
Well, he says he takes it from 23rd.
yeah.
So
He will
23rd,
change.
So he's
he
good,
will
he is
be-
one stop,
So he'll
he
be.
is one
he'll-
Sunrunner
right,
stop
so
off,
He'll be one.
Yeah,
or probably like 7, 18 stops.
Yeah.
But he has to take a Sunrunner and then get on the 18, am I correct or
He
not?
could.
And
to
or
Grand
you'd have to
Central.
walk over to Grand Central to get on the 18
Yeah, yeah.
go direct.
Or do a
Again,
direct
we're
connect
talking about
Uber.
mobility
Or
impaired
Uber.
people.
Yeah.
So when you say walk over to Grand Central, what does that walk look like? Because a walk for me can be completely different.
It's
for
not-
an
it's
Right,
one
you'll
block.
walk- and
It's one
he's
block.
a disabled
One block.
veteran.
Yeah.
And he's doing that now, right?
Not yet. He's taken 18 all the way from his house out to the VA. And now it's not gonna go up First Avenue. It's gonna initiate at Grand Central, correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, but again, we gotta bear in mind too, especially with the vets, that they have a lot of mobility issues too,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
That's why I was wondering, a lot of wheelchair, a lot of.
And we pick up a lot of that slack too from the VA too, because they don't like paying for rides either, you know.
I know.
Yeah, yeah.
I know.
And that kind of hurts us. But it'll be a learning process, and I think we'll be fine, because it's not like there's not gonna be a whole abundance of options, because there will be a whole abundance of options, and it may take a little bit of, it's all just learning, you know, it's just, that's all it boils down to. Thank you. That's all I got.
Commissioner Albert?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, is this all the respondents? Or just the?
So far, yes, so last night at 3:59 PM, I think is when he stopped, he made this, yeah.
I think we'll get used to it.
So,
Yeah, and last night at that track, that we had our riders advisory committee always the Tuesday afternoon, before this meeting. And, some of them, they had seen the flyers on the buses and maybe provided comment. But, one gentleman said that, at least on people he was talking to, were confused, that they were worried that the trolley was gonna stop at 6:30
Yeah.
throughout the whole distance. Throughout all the way through St. Petersburg, which it's not. It's gonna run till midnight, just like it does now, from St. Petersburg out to 75th and Gulf. And then only at
Then
6:30,
it's gonna
it'll stop
stop.
going
Yeah.
south, St. Pete Beach.
That reminds me of one more thing too.
sure.
During the events that we have, like Pride, like local Topia, and how that cat really, really, really got backed up. Now, we're gonna have some kind of issues, I would envision, with the Sunrunner too, that's running those same routes downtown. Will we have some kind of backup or protection for that too? Because we don't want, the Sunrunner will be running downtown generally on a weekend, like on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Right.
We have that. So, because my wife and I, we use the cat, we park at Grand Central because it's free. And then we ride the cat because, well, they charged me $250 once, but they don't do that anymore. And, but,
I think Debbie Lee said they
yeah, you guys paid me.
credited your account.
And I appreciate that very much. But that being said, are we gonna put that in our vision too for, on the big holidays like Pride or local Topia or the Grand Prix? Or, we're gonna have some kind of, I wouldn't say emergency plan, but a plan to make sure we still keep the Sunrunner and everything else on time as best we can. Because the trolley was hurt. I mean, it was really hurt. It was running like an hour behind.
So you mean like a bus-only lane?
Well, yeah, that would make sense if it would work.
Maybe a
But-
gondola.
No, it should work, it should work. I think people are getting, that's a good call right there.
A lot of those, it's closing down Central where the Sunrunner's not gonna go, and that's why we have the bus-only lane. and
Right,
it's
right.
Traffic signal priorities to make sure that those are remaining efficient, and I'm sure there'll be growing pains as you know, with, you know, I honestly, I envision the biggest issue being drivers blocking
getting
the
into that
intersection,
lane.
trying to get across or do something,
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but.
yeah.
Right, that's one of the whole reasons for the Sunrunner is because there's so many events in St. Petersburg
Yeah.
and traffic on Central, and it does.
Yeah, it's horrible, it gets horrible.
But as Commissioner Schulman said, it will be kind of a work in progress. I mean, we've already, well, it's already gotten better, but since the lanes were striped
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Sunrunner, at first, the Tampa Bay Rays baseball games, there was questions by the police department and everything, you know, how they
Right.
direct traffic around the Rays.
Yeah.
Right.
And, but I just went to the Rays game, I mean, they seem to have gotten that all worked out, and I think that will,
All right,
that'll happen.
thank you, John.
Sure.
Thank you, Brad.
I did want to, in reading, in looking at the comments, it seems like there are a good number of comments of people that have yet to be able to envision themselves
yeah.
using the Sunrunner. So once that service is up and running, I think there's going to be a good shift of, oh, this is better. I know what's going on, and I'm going to use it. I did wonder, though, for some of the folks that will have to transfer, right? So they take the Sunrunner from somewhere downtown to Grand Central, maybe they're going up to Tyrone, which was a couple of comments. My question's more of cost, right? So they're now gonna have to be paying twice the fare, right? Because they're paying an extra fare when they transfer, and then they're doing the same thing in reverse. Now, I realize we have fare capping, and I realize a lot of these folks probably already have passes. But do we have any thoughts about maybe having a temporary transfer, free transfer as people are learning the system and?
Well, the Sunrunner is
Free.
proposed to be free for the first 6 months.
Okay, good
So-
point. So we're hoping that that's the transition time where people can learn about how to.
That's the opportunity for people to get themselves together, try the Sunrunner, decide how they can best use it, and then also get the best fare either through Flamingo or Day Pass.
So I imagine inside the Sunrunner, there's gonna be plenty of advertising about fare capping and the Flamingo and letting people know.
There is no shortage of marketing ideas for how we're going to promote the Sunrunner and all of its perks.
It's certainly
Fantastic.
something we're gonna monitor. If we do see a lot of transfer activity and, you know, we always have the ability to make an adjustment.
I just, that, you know, yes, there's a block, you know, people might have to walk a block or, you know,
Right.
and that's, people who use transit know that that's gonna happen. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily door to door, and I don't think it's inconvenient. It might be an adjustment, but it's not, it is not like, well, I have to walk 3 miles, you know, to get to the stop. And that was the thought process behind where the Sunrunner stops were put in the first place, was to coordinate with that. I did have a question, though, just how this works. How do we get that in, so when do we tell the transit app? Or like, you know, or does, when we change this route, it automatically updates all of that sort of
Right,
stuff?
so when we push out our real-time database with the service change, that automatically gets fed into the transit app. So it knows the changes that we've made. So it'll happen that Sunday, late night, early morning.
And do we know, does that also go to like Google and things like that? Is that
Yes.
how they get those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Any additional Commissioner Fixon?
How often are you going to survey the riders once it changes? Goes in full, Sunrunner actually is fully operational. Because I know you said something about a Riders Advisory Council.
Yeah,
How often do they meet?
Monthly?
Monthly.
Monthly?
they may every month, yeah.
So we do we do a lot of different kinds of surveys. When we do make service changes that are extensive, we generally do a survey on the bus prior to doing that. We also do customer satisfaction surveys as part of our scorecard. You'll see in a presentation later in this meeting about the community bus program. Every 5 years, we do an origin destination survey, and that gives us the data that we need to know how people are using the system. The Flamingo also gives us some idea of where people are transferring. And so we have made decisions in the past about how do we give the most people the best one-seat ride. An example of that is the Route 5 used to come from downtown St. Pete all the way out Fifth Ave North. we found that a lot of people were transferring from the 9, which is on 9th Street, to the 5. And so we decided that we would put those together. So the 9 now goes down 9th and across Fifth Ave to Grand Central, and then the 5 goes from Grand Central out. So that gives the most people, and so we do that kind of survey. And so it's coming up probably this spring. We'll do that, and that will also feed into a lot of our other data models.
Okay, thank
I don't know, sorry, I got way down in the weeds.
you.
No, weeds are fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
all right,
good to
okay.
know you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no additional questions or comments, I will entertain a
Move to
motion.
approve agenda item 3B.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That passed unanimously. Thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you, Sandra.
And now I guess we're Bonnie Epstein with the PSTA access update.
It's stuck. I'm gonna
Oh,
fall asleep.
falls asleep. I had to turn it off and then turn it back on. Freewheel, or do you want to?
We'll be all over the place.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. Yes, good morning, Planning Committee. I'm Bonnie Epstein, I'm Director of Mobility Services, and I'm here to talk about our PSTA Access update. So it's a very exciting time for the PSTA Access service. We're approximately 1 year into our revamped PSTA Access program. So about a year ago is when we started to charge fares again. We started taking calls in-house for reservations for the access service. In addition to mobility on demand, we are doing our new eligibility process. We started using our new software program, and it is about a year ago that we started using our new contractors for access, First Transit, Bay Area Metro, and USERV. But we have the same commitment to providing the highest level of reliable and safe transportation services for our most important customers. And what we can see is ridership is definitely up, on-time performance is higher, and our complaints are on the decline. But perhaps most significant, as you can see in these pie charts, is that we've really seen a flip from traditional pre-scheduled paratransit services to real-time on-demand rides on the Mobility on Demand program. So you can see July 2021, about 2/3 of our service here is on traditional paratransit, and then July 2022, 2/3 of the ridership is really on that on-demand program. So riders are really switching their behavior from pre-scheduled to on-demand. So this is probably the biggest change ever for the PSTA Access program, and I was reminded of this recently at an APTA conference this past May. So after I had given the presentation about our program, a longtime paratransit manager from Phoenix, who himself has a visual disability, came up and thanked me for what PSTA is doing to lead the entire industry to a better level of service for paratransit riders. So during the presentation, I always talk about how our riders are using the MOD service to go out to dinner at Applebee's, and everyone always kind of laughs at this part of the presentation. But this paratransit manager said, finally, there's a transit system that is realizing that people with disabilities are normal. They have normal needs and want to go to Applebee's just like everybody else. And I thought this was really great to hear because I'm always really excited to talk about our MOD program and how our riders aren't just going to doctor's appointments, that riders can and do go wherever they want. Well, almost wherever they want. We're still kind of constrained to Pinellas County. But I'm so thankful to my staff on the PSTA mobility team, all of our great contractors, to Brad, Commissioner Cox, and the rest of the PSTA board for their support of our PSTA access service. We're making great progress on improving how we use the new software. We've done a lot of refining, correcting, and efficiency improvements since this past March when we had this presentation previously. But we're still, at that point, we were really adjusting to the new software. I think we've made a lot of improvements since then. I'm happy that things are better and additional improvements are coming soon. But I wanted to bring up a story about a recent trip that didn't go so well. So our friend and PSTA track rider, Kim Rankin, had a tough experience recently when her trip was late because First Transit, we didn't have enough drivers out on the road in the evening. And when her driver did arrive for her trip, she had to go way out of her way to pick up another customer, again, because there weren't that many drivers out on the road. And it turned out that when she arrived to pick up that other customer, we realized that that customer had tried to cancel their trip, but the PSC reservation agent had forgotten to cancel that ride in the system. So I mentioned this story, and that's Kim in the picture, to really thank him for being so understanding, but also to show that I was really proud of our mobility team for immediately getting to work and diagnosing all of the problems, and we really started to correct them. So First Transit has reoriented all of their driver assignments, and here at PSCA we've given our reservation agents additional training and coaching, and thankfully we really haven't had those types of issues in the future, or since that time. Another thing that I wanted to bring up and that I'm really excited about is that the PSCA rider-facing app that we had talked about previously back in March is being released tomorrow. The biggest benefit of what riders are going to be able to use this PSA Access app for is that they can book their trips up to 24 hours in advance for the Access service. Right now, the app will also allow riders to view their past trips and upcoming trips, as well as add favorite locations. We're just really excited about this. We know that later this year, we want to be able to allow riders to add a credit card on file to the rider-facing app so that rides can be booked for the Access service using a credit card. Right now, riders can only use a paper ticket or cash. So we want to be able to offer riders pay with a credit card just like they do for the MOD service. And then early next year, want to have riders be able to book their MOD trips through the rider-facing PSA Access app. So you can download this app now if you'd like. You can search for PSA Access in the App Store or Google Play. If you're a existing PSA Access rider, you can just log in with the phone number that we have on file. If you're not in the PSA Access service, you can just download the app and kind of look around at it. But you have to be in the Access service to be able to book a
You'll
trip.
be denied.
I'm gonna be denied?
Well, unless you're an actual Access customer.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To download the app?
Yeah.
You can download.
No, you can download the app, but
Okay.
you won't be able to book a ride.
use it.
Oh, well, that's all right. I
Yeah.
just wanna look at it.
Yeah, you could, and anyone is welcome to download the app and take a look, but to actually book and take rides, you have to be a PSA Access customer.
Well, we can arrange that.
Yeah, we can talk about it. It's pretty cool.
You know who to call.
Yeah, we think that the app is gonna be a great benefit to our riders.
Yeah.
Really, the ability to be able to book the rides in advance and not have to book rides during business hours. So I know I always forget things until 11 p.m. at night. Now, if you remember, at any time to book your ride, you can book the ride, you can check on your ride, you can look at your past rides anytime you want, not restricted to business hours. We're excited to give riders alternatives to our phone line, and really hoping to reduce the hold time for our call lines. They're not very high right now, but this will take even more pressure off of our call center. So like I said, this app is going to be released. It's already out. You can download it, and riders can start taking trips. But we're really doing our big marketing push starting this evening, tomorrow, and into next week. So tomorrow is really our big launch. We're sending out a robocall to all active PSCA riders this evening at 7:45. Everyone will receive a phone call telling them about the app and the benefits tonight at 7:45. We also have a bunch of paper materials. All Access riders will be getting a little mailer in the mail. We also have a flyer that's going out that all Access drivers will be passing out to riders to let them know about the app. Doctors' offices, dialysis clinics, and the VA will have a copy of the flyer as well to be able to distribute. In addition to the marketing materials, we have some changes going up on our PSA website to inform riders of the app. There's a little how-to video. We've also got a special, I mentioned earlier, we had our mobility phone tree, we have a special option there for a help desk for riders that need help with the rider app. That's option 8. We also did some testing with some focus groups just to get rider feedback, make sure the rider app was intuitive, easy to use. So this is an actual picture of a rider focus group that we held at PSCA, that's our Transportation Conference Room. It was a chance to have riders give us their feedback that we passed on to the SPARE team. So we do think that the app is going to be a great improvement, a great option for our customers. We're always looking to make improvements to the software and make it more efficient. Speaking of our software, we are looking to test the driver breaks feature for First Transit very soon, as well as manual dispatching. And as I mentioned with Kim's Ride, we're working together in real time to make changes and improve the customer experience and improve efficiency. We know that there's going to be some challenges with the Rider app. Riders may think that they're booking trips that don't actually go through, and kind of the reverse. We're trying to anticipate all potential problems and plan for them. We do have everyone, all hands on deck. Our mobility team, call takers, customer service, our contractors. We prepped the help desk, so we should be all ready to go tomorrow. We're doing our best to anticipate the challenges, but we think we're prepared. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
I'm looking. I don't think anything. I like the idea though.
Yeah,
I really do.
So besides the focus group, was this presented to the track committee as well?
Yeah.
What was there, any useful feedback from them?
The only question that we got or comment, other than I think a couple of people said they were excited, was the reoccurring rides or any existing rides. Would those need to be rebooked? They do not need to be rebooked. And of course, riders also, they still have the option to call in. This is just an additional option.
Okay.
That was all the feedback.
And Kim Rankin cheered on Bonnie.
Yeah, she's excited. I think she downloaded the app. Actually, a couple people downloaded the app during the presentation.
All right, well, thank you so much. We will move on to our next information item, the Transit Development Plan and Bus Service Plan. I'm not sure who's leading this, if it's Devin
So
or Heather.
we have 2 presenters, Devin Deal, who is a new planner with us in the planning department. Excited to have him. He was our intern over the summer, and I think you've seen him. He created our new equity tool, and so he'll be working with Heather Sobush on the community bus plan. And this is probably the most influential service plan and prioritization plan that we do as a complement to our sustainable strategic plan. So it is critical to our funding, and it's critical to the work that we do in the planning department. So I'll turn it over to Devin and Heather to talk about why it's important and what we'll be doing during this time.
Thank you, Cassandra. Good morning, Planning Committee. I'm Devin Neal, the Transit Planner, and I'll be presenting along with our Director of Planning, Heather Sobush, on our Transit Development Plan Progress Report and our Community Bus Plan. Next slide, please. There's a slide before this, I think. Okay, I'll just speak about it. It was just a summary. So the Transit Development Plan has 10-year major updates that are due every 5 years. And this timeline allows for incorporation into the MPO's long-range transportation plan. Our last 10-year major update was in 2020, and our community bus plan, which Cassandra was speaking on and Heather will introduce you to later in this presentation, it really guides our goals and projects that we lay out in the TDP. So what I'm presenting is our TDP progress report, and these are due annually by September 1st. The annual progress report includes updates on our projects that are included in the TDP, as well as new projects that will help us meet the goals and objectives that we lay out in our TDP. And we do all of this because TDP is required by FDOT, as well as the annual update, and it really mandates good planning. Every time we ask FDOT for money for a project, they ask us if the project is in our TDP, and we tell them of course it is, and then they give us money. But more than that, we use this as a way to have the conversation about what the vision for Pinellas County Transit should be. And as PSTA as an organization, we tend to go above and beyond in our coordination with the MPO, with their long-range transportation plan, as well as TBARTA with their master plan. And because of this coordination, we've really set the trend with how FDOT will move forward and change the timelines for how agencies are required to coordinate. And with that in mind, I'm excited to tell you about the elements in our TDP progress report that we've achieved this year. So first I'm going to speak a little on our sustainable strategic plan. We incorporated this last year, and it serves as the guiding document for nearly everything we do as an organization. The SSP establishes our short, medium, and long-term goals, and it allows us to analyze and measure our progress in sustainability with every project, ensuring they align with the triple bottom line of healthy communities and workforce, economic vitality, and environmental sustainability. And the projects that you hear about today will all tie back into one of these. Next slide, please. So finally, I'm sure we're all excited. After years of work, the Summer BRT is launching in October this year. We're currently wrapping up our final phases of construction and testing to prepare for the fall launch. Additionally, we conducted a transit-oriented development analysis of areas surrounding the Summer stations to facilitate increased density and more mixed-use development, transit-focused development in immediate areas around the stations. The image in the top right is a design concept of one of the 58th Street stations of the kind of mixed-use development that we'll be encouraging around the stations. Next slide, please. Also very exciting, this month PSTA was awarded $20 million from the US DOT RACE grant for the construction of a LEED certified Clearwater Transit Center in downtown Clearwater. The images that we have on this slide are some of the design concepts for our transit center, and this will provide us with a really much needed hub that will be able to also accommodate our electric buses, which the current facilities can't. So this is huge for us and another big step forward for sustainability. Next slide, please. With our electric bus program, we've partnered into a new service agreement this year with Duke for over $5 million to install and maintain solar electric bus charging infrastructure for 10 years. This allows us to continue to expand our e-bus fleet and continue with our contract for the purchase of 60 electric buses from Gillig, keeping us on track to eventually achieve our goal of a fully electric fleet. Next slide, please. So we've also had a strong focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion as an organization, and creating an equity index was part of the sustainable strategic plan, and we completed ours earlier this year. We are in the process of incorporating our equity index into the shelter deployment plan, which we previously presented to TRAC and the planning committee, to really help us target our amenities in areas of equity concern in the county where they're needed most. Also, just last month, we increased the income qualifications for the Transit Disadvantage Program from 150% of the federal poverty level to 200% of the federal poverty level. Next slide, please. So through fiscal year 22, we have maintained our very successful Direct Connect and Late Shift programs, partnering with Uber and Lyft to get people where they need to go when a bus can't. And we also received a grant this year to expand our mobility services to offer regional trips. So we'll be making headway on that soon as well. Next slide, please. We also began partnering with Pinellas County Schools when we allow any student to ride any route for free in Pinellas County with a student ID. With the bus driver shortage in the county, PSTA really wanted to step up and help families fill that gap. We also have our partnership at Duke, which I previously mentioned, to fund our solar charging stations, and we continue partnering with AVA and expanded the piloting autonomous transit service in Clearwater and downtown Dunedin. So it has been a very busy and exciting year for us, and with that update on our TDP progress, I'll be turning this over to Heather to discuss our community bus plan.
Thank you, Devin. Next slide, please. Okay, so the reason these two are tied together in the same presentation is because, as both Cassandra and Devin said, that they go hand in hand. And so the community bus service plan really gives us the opportunity to dig into how our existing services are operating, and then develop scenarios for under different funding scenarios. We last did one in we adopted it in 2019. The work was done in 2018, and it included an onboard survey where we had over 4,000 valid surveys. And those surveys are origin destination surveys, so they tell us where people are coming from, where they're going to, how they get to the bus, what buses they transfer between. And so it gives us a large amount of data that we use regularly in the years following. That data does get outdated though, so another reason why we're proposing to do a new bus plan starting next year. So that plan was, we didn't have any new revenue expected, so the plan was focused on streamlining services to increase efficiency, improve on-time performance, and enhance service incrementally on core routes. As was already mentioned, we coordinate closely with Ford Pinellas so that the first 10 years of the long-range transportation plan are derived from the bus plan and TDP. Next slide, please. So we are planning to do another community bus service plan. And so the proposed scope for that includes an onboard survey again. Again, that data is outdated now. And then a lot of data analysis from the survey, from public outreach. And then we also do employee inReach, where we hold focus groups with the operators and customer service representatives and supervisors to really get their thoughts and ideas about our services. We also evaluate our existing services, things like on-time performance, so that we can look for opportunities to improve. And then I think most importantly is this gives us the opportunity to evaluate multiple scenarios. So if we were to get additional funding, say from the county or from some other revenue source, we could have scenarios where we pull out, which services would be improved under different funding scenarios. So we have an existing services with our innovative services, kind of no new revenue scenario. We then have going the other end of the spectrum, the vision scenario with everything we would possibly do if we had all the money we needed. And then from that, the incremental expansion. And then as to Chair Schulman's point a few meetings ago, this also will give us the opportunity to look about how we orient services around the Sunrunner, and then also opportunities to further supplement school bus services, so the yellow bus services. And then finally, we will come out of this with recommendations and implementation plans, as well as those scenarios that can be included in the cost feasible long-range transportation plan, as well as their vision plan. Next slide, please. And so the next steps are for us to issue a request for proposals next month, and then we'll take October and November to review those proposals, have presentations with consultants if needed, negotiations, and then bring this back to you in December to the board in December for approval. And that is all. I'll turn it back to the chair for any questions of Devin or I.
Any questions? Heather, I do have a question, and I appreciate you talking about enhancing or understanding other riders, like the school bus riders, and integrating with the Sunrunner. As part of this research, are we going to be reaching out specifically, like say for example, to the schools to talk to them about, right? So if we're doing research of current bus riders, then we're not engaging potential riders. We're only engaging current riders. So, are we going to be looking to those stakeholders at either at hotels, event venues, the school districts to say, if you had service, what would that do to your needs as a way to potentially capture more riders?
So let me.
Or Cassandra.
Yes, short answer is yes. And one of the things that Devin said right at the very beginning, which is probably the most important part of doing this plan, is that it feeds directly into the long-range transportation plan for Ford Pinellas. And so when we do this plan, it becomes the transit element of that plan. And so we partner with Ford Pinellas, and they are all over the county doing all kinds of, not just asking people about transit, but all of their transportation needs. And we use that information that they get about what people say about transit in this part of the plan. So this allows us to be very active and control the part of the plan that affects us the most. But it becomes that prioritization process as we line up our projects for federal dollars in the MPO approval process, right? Because they approve what the priorities are for the whole county when it comes to where the federal dollars go, and we want to be at that table and tell them what our needs are and how to prioritize our dollars. So the original question was about, are we reaching out to people who are not riders? And the answer is yes, we are, because we're talking about in the context of all transportation, and we're able to not only get information about their opportunities to use transit, but also educate them about the things that we do now.
Thank you. And does this also integrate with the T-BARTA's plans for the region?
So they take this plan and they roll it up into what they do at a regional level. We just had a conversation this morning with T-BARTA staff about our, what we have listed as our short-term goals, and they asked about our progress because they're putting their own progress report together. So, Devin's presentation was really about the TDP progress report, and that's part of the FDOT process. So Debbie talked at the previous meeting about our block grants. It all fits together, right? We do a major update for our TDP. We like to call it our community bus plan because it sounds nicer than TDP, right? And we like to brand things, and we like to have a more robust community conversation. But what FDOT is doing is saying, if you want our money, you have to do some good planning. And so we take their requirements and we say, well, we would do all of this anyway. We're going to do this, right? And we're going to be a model for the state of how we work with the MPO, which we are, and we can talk about that later. But, so we do this community bus plan. We submit that to FDOT as our TDP. And then every time they say, oh, you want what? Is it in your TDP? We say, yes, it's right here. And then we can give you money for that. We can give you block grant money. Then they require us every year to make a progress report to say, well, are you actually doing what you said you would do, and how are you doing it? And so we turn that in every year, and that's what Devin presented.
Right.
But we're keeping our eyes on the prize, right, and going straight for the next thing, which is our next community bus plan, which, because we have such an extensive public engagement process with that, it takes a long time to do. So while you might not adopt it until 2023, just before the MPO does their plan, we're going to be working on it, but for 2024, right? You adopt it in 2024, we'll be working on it as early as spring of 2023, getting the data side of what we need. So Devin and Heather are home with COVID, so that's why I chose to answer, because I could tell she was like just having a little trouble. Not that I would want to normally talk for her.
And I will say, I appreciate that almost always your answer is usually yes, and
And
then
then
the
the-
explanation. So, there's no waiting for how's it going to end up
Right.
at the end of the explanation. So I appreciate that. Are there, Commissioner Oliver?
Do we, there's so much I don't know as still the new board member, and I've got a meeting with Brad tomorrow, so I've got my 71 questions lined up. But for you here,
Yes.
do we see that Forward Pinellas data? I, like Josh, wonder what we're missing because they're not current riders. Do we see that Forward Pinellas net?
Oh, yes,
data?
we work hand in hand with Forward Pinellas. It's a very, very
We
important.
being this planning committee.
Oh,
No.
no. No, you would see that at the broader transportation conversation happens at the Forward Pinellas board.
Okay, so how would we know the answer to Josh's question? This planning committee, as we
Right.
think about,
Yeah.
I know the service is on Sunrunner. I'm interested in the person who's tucked in a neighborhood in the middle of suburban Seminole and what they're thinking. And so I wonder how that information gets to us. I'd like to see it.
Okay, well, we can certainly bring that as
Okay.
part of, and we can certainly have the MPO bring a presentation here. That's not a problem at all about the extensiveness of
Okay.
what they do. I mean, the public engagement is a tricky thing.
Sure.
People have to want to engage with us as much as
Understood.
we try to
Understood.
get,
Understood.
have an open door to engage with them.
Yes.
So we're not getting to
Understood.
980,000 residents,
Yes.
right?
Right.
We
Understood.
Yeah, I think everyone here understands the public engagement process in various roles. Usually you hear about things when they're broken. So we get that. Commissioner Albritton?
Yeah, I just want to say that Fort Pinellas does have a tip and works very closely with FDOT and I am on the Fort Pinellas board, so if anything you need, just
Okay.
let me know and I'll try to bring it to you or get you up to date on it.
Good, thank you.
And Commissioner Fix Sanders?
Yeah, I just want to let Devin know, we did have that first slide, so.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we had our first
He's-
slide, even though you didn't have it today, we
fault.
did have that first slide, so rest assured, we were able to follow along.
I was hoping we'd let him sweat that out a little bit more, but you cleared him on that.
We, in the planning department, we really try to train people to go on the fly.
Okay,
You know,
well, he did a
he
great
did a great
job.
job.
He did a great job.
Plan to be spontaneous, I like it.
Yes.
All right, any additional comments or questions? All right, seeing none. Devin, Heather, Cassandra, thank you. Our next item is going to be the Clearwater Transit Center project update from Mr. Miller and potentially Mr. Albert.
Exactly. Well, good morning. Council member Albritton and I suggested we just put this on the agenda quickly for this morning, since no doubt you've probably seen a lot of the news. Just a week ago, it seems like longer. Just a week ago on Monday, I got a call that we've been looking forward from Congressman Christ, that we were successful for the first time in Pinellas County history for any transportation project, after 14 tries, to get a competitive U.S. Department of Transportation grant for the Clearwater Transit Center for $20 million. That was amazing news. The first person I called was Commissioner Albritton. The second person I think I called was our chair, Pat Gerard. And then I emailed Barry Burton, the county manager, and the city manager of Clearwater right away and I think everybody else too, all of you, with the good news. I was a very happy person, and then
And then.
2 days later, then I saw the Tampa Bay Times, and my frown went down. And then, what? The good news, thanks largely to Councilmember Albritton's work on this. On Monday, the Clearwater City Council, it was a workshop, so they didn't actually vote, but Councilmember Albritton asked them to reach consensus and polled the entire council. They have full consensus to move forward with the transit center on the site that has been planned for now 10 years, where it's been planned at the Court Street and Myrtle Avenue. The council had already voted unanimously on this site back a year ago in June of 2021 to give PSDA this Court and Myrtle site for the transit center, and then in exchange, PSDA would give the city the site where the transit center, the current transit center is. That would go to the city. The council had voted on that. I'm sure Councilmember Albritton can speak more about this, but at least my assessment of what happened was just a breakdown in communication or understanding with the new city manager being new and not recognizing that vote that the council had already took. But that's what secured us the grant. We were able to lock down the land. We had the land confirmed by the city, and that's what led to the success in getting the $20 million. So now, we're back to being very, very excited. I think I got a call from the mayor this morning. Things are moving forward. Everybody is on the same page finally, and that's exciting. Representative Christ is very excited to come give us a big, huge check, and I think the Clearwater City Council all wants to be there too, to receive it. He asked if it would happen after the primary. He's working on something else right now, and then he'll come.
No joke.
He'll come to Clearwater and give us the $20 million. The attorneys for PSDA and the city have already communicated. It's my hope, my expectation that the next step will be to take the land, what we're calling the land swap agreement, that the city provides PSDA the Court and Myrtle site, and we provide our site to them, to go to the city council and to the PSDA board, hopefully in September for both those items, because they were already almost completed by the attorneys. 6 months ago. So that's the next step. We will then close on the properties, probably over the next 6 months after that. So by the spring, that's also, we'll be moving into the final design right now also, and so that'll move on in a parallel track, and hopefully a construction contract for the Clearwater Transit Center, which has been in the works for longer than 10 years. I know the former executive director, Roger Sweeney, this was high on his list to try to get done. So it's a long time in coming. It's actually gonna happen. Councilman Albritton and can chime in, and then other people, I'm sure, you have thoughts.
So I just want to say this, I apologize to all the hundreds of people that wrote letters of support. Brad kind of nailed it on the head. He and I were elated last Monday, and then the confusion started with Tracy McManus in the Times calling the city manager, and he had some other ideas that really I think it was out of his bound to do, but we straightened that out on Monday. The one caveat that was put in place was we still have a gap in funding because this has taken so long. You know, now it's, according to Brad, it's around a $44 million project. We do have input from Ford Pinellas, from the city of Clearwater, from FDOT monetarily, but there's a gap and we need to close it. And the mayor brought up the point that perhaps we get that gap closed before we actually transfer the land.
Yeah.
Everybody's on board with it, but I just wanted to put that out there, that that's the next thing. And there's no time limitation on it, but according to the grant, we do have a time limitation. So I think that's about 3 years, but we want to move forward. I mean, it's shovel ready to go. That's what we told them in Washington. So we want to move forward, and maybe the county might step up,
It is, I
hopefully.
mean, after I called the county manager, Barry, on Monday, right after the council meeting, as I was driving away from Clearwater, he called me back, very, very positive about potentially helping with some of the county's reserve funds, one time,
Yes.
to fill that gap.
Right.
And so I have a meeting with the county executive coming up.
Well,
and,
we haven't talked about that, so.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about it now.
That's right,
No,
that's
I'm
right.
just, I just don't want to get too far ahead because, our budget's been set pretty much, and we'll have the public workshops on them. Janet was the one that mentioned it yesterday. Brad Berry, county administrator, not manager. He did say that you all have a meeting coming up.
Yeah.
She requested that we entertain looking at some of our funding sources to assist with the gap. So we'll take a look at that, but it's kind of hard to do when you've already kind of set parameters in place. Not that we're not on board, it's just no for sure commitment. So I just kind of want to interject that right there so that there won't be any additional bad information that gets out there. But I'm glad that was cleared up between the city and PSTA.
Right, and if and understand, we have no guarantee of county funding, just hopeful. And the option B, to make sure we can go to construction with this project, is to look at PSDA's own program and make adjustments. And we don't want to cancel any of our other capital project priorities. But I feel confident we will meet the city's requirement that the council put on, that we have all the funding secured before we actually do the transaction.
The PSTA is already, the output's already about $2 million on the NEPA and all the preparation to go forward on this. So, I think we're in a good place to get going on it.
Great.
Are there other comments?
So I may have missed this, I apologize, but what's the plan for, while this is under construction, what's the plan for where we will provide pickup services and whatnot while they're constructing the new
Right.
bus spot?
Well, for now, there's been a lot of changes and discussion about that, what's a temporary site. Now the city of Clearwater has decided to build their city hall on a different site, on the site just north of Fort Myrtle, and not on where the transit center it currently sits. So, at least what Abhishek and I have been talking about is the thought, well, possibly if the city, that we would just stay where we are until the new center is built. So there would not be a need for temporary site.
Okay.
That's the current thinking.
One of the things that I've been pushing with Imagine Clearwater now going vertical and will be completed next June, I've been talking about parking, because we took 1,000 spaces away to expand the park, and it seemed that for the longest time that was on deaf ears, but now the new city manager and staff, we've actually bought Peace Memorial's parking lot, which is right across from the old city hall, and we're planning a parking garage there. It'll be, it might not be finished by the time it's open, but we have plenty of city parking garages. Most of the events will be after hours, so we can use those. But where I thought the need to move quickly on the 500 block where the bus station is now, there's no pressure on that.
Okay.
So we can stay there until the other one's built, move over, and that's what we'll do.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right.
And my other question was about the gap financing but we already talked about that, so.
Are there any additional questions? No? Any other business?
I have one positive story. Well, number one, as you go out, you can see our newly branded first of 200 that we have to go. The new PSTA branded bus. So out with the old 1980s blue and in with the sea green, sea foam, whatever that color is, on the buses. And then all the new buses will look like that one out front. Number two, just related to a very positive week last week, let's ignore the small little divot. Abhishek also was overjoyed to get the RAISE grant. And then he told me that in addition last week, he became a U.S. citizen.
Yay!
It was a good week.
Congrats.
Congratulations. You were already.
Can I register you to vote?
Yeah, just say, just.
That's the first thing I did.
Oh, you already did?
That's
Oh,
what I'm
yeah.
talking about.
Can I
Yeah,
help you
General
with that,
election,
though?
yeah.
No, I'm just-
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yay, Abby.
That's, yeah, fabulous.
And I gotta tell you, I had a friend about 8 years ago that I went with him to the ceremony. I think every American should go see this ceremony. It is so moving. Did you do it in Tampa?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, it's one of the neatest things. It really brings back, the spirit of America. So, congratulations.
Yeah.
Commissioner Oliver?
Speaking of good news, and the political discourse, qualifying ended on Monday in Seminole, and no one ran against me. So
Yeah.
I am reelected.
And Mayor Leslie, and Mayor Leslie Waters.
And
got
Mayor
back
Mayor
in,
Waters
yeah.
and Tom Barnhart, so the band is back together.
Yeah.
So really, no one dare run against you.
No,
That's really how
no.
it should be said. The only other business item I have is just a reminder from the Personnel Committee. I did this in the last meeting, to please make sure you complete the evaluation of Mr. Miller by August 26th. So that
I
those
think
are,
it was then or this Friday you wanted to have it?
The 26th.
26.
Next Friday.
26th, okay. So next Friday.
you're fine to do it by this Friday.
Or you could do it this Friday.
Yeah, they're not gonna throw them away if you do it
Early is good, early is on
Glad he said
time.
something, 'cause I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I saw it, I got it printed out, so I can do it.
Okay.
All
I
right.
saw him at FACS, so, yeah.
All right, With that, seeing no other items, we are adjourned until our next meeting, which is September 21st. Thank you so much.
Nice job.
Good,
guys.
thank you.
My son came over from Pasco to work, and the metal threads came out through his tire.
That's
He
really
was
cool.
one that was just in this really bad wreck.
Oh.
And so we were trying to find a place that he could get a tire.
No, I
He
shouldn't
stopped
do
going
that.
down the
You
road.
didn't do that? No.
And then the one place we found that had a tire on the side. They only take cash.
Good.
So I had to run to.
Thank you, yeah, that's the
So
least
anyway, I
favorite
texted them.
part of
and
the
said,
job is campaigning.
So I-
No worries, no worries.